Thank you for joining us for Small Talks for Big Change, where we help simplify financial topics to help with your financial wellness. Hi, everyone out there, and thank you for joining us today as we chat the importance of fraud education and continue our series on fraud. We have got an incredible guest that is a junior at Dublin High School. We want to welcome Aayush Gandhi, who's joining us in the studio today. Aayush recently started a nonprofit organization called Fraud Stop that has a mission of educating on financial fraud. Aayush, we are so impressed with what you're doing with teens in the community to help educate about fraud. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me, Michelle, and for the kind words that you've said about Fraud Stop. I'm similarly looking forward to talking about fraud and talking about Fraud Stop and who we are and what we do.
I love your passion about this topic, and you're only 16 years old, and you've already started your first company. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm really passionate about public policy and community activism in general. In my schools, at Dublin High School, I'm part of the Lincoln Douglas debate team. And so in that debate team, I have to constantly debate and research government policy, economic policy, foreign policy, and so forth. And so I'm pretty much traveling every weekend when the season is on to Chicago, LA, Las Vegas, Minneapolis, Atlanta, like you name it, across the country. And it's really been an amazing experience for me to know people across the U.S. who have similar perspectives to mine, similar interests. And so that's really where, Fraud Stop actually originated from, if you look back, because I was really involved in community activism and learning more about how we can help at the local level. And that's from debate. Also in this line of debate, really involved with helping other students in debate, like high school students, middle school students, and elementary school students learn public speaking and learn debate. And so that's one area of interest that I'm really passionate about and I spend a lot of time in. Of course, I've also founded Fraud Stop, which is a nonprofit trying to raise awareness and educate other people about fraud. But I guess we'll talk about that later on, so I won't delve too deep into that. Some of my hobbies, I would say that I'm really into foreign policy and learning about history and conflicts generally. Like 2 months ago, I actually wrote a 10-page paper on the Vietnam War. And so I'm really also into that and reading about that. If you're not finding me hosting events for Fraud Stop or debating nationally. And so yeah, I guess people can probably assume that I'm going to be majoring in economics or political science, somewhere in that realm. That's where I'm aiming towards. My dream school is Georgetown, and so I'm really trying to go there.
Okay, amazing. So tell us more about Fraud Stop. It's not typical that we get these high school students or someone that your age that makes it their life mission to start a nonprofit and support the community, especially around the epidemic of fraud. So where did you get the inspiration behind getting started?
Yeah, so my grandparents actually recently moved from India to the US and they are getting a new bank account, getting new phones, SIM cards, and all of that. And I really saw them getting bombarded by these creepy people online with like text messages, phone calls, and email addresses. And so I was like, why can't I do something about it? Why can't I help my grandparents, but also the larger Bay Area community with this? To be honest, before my grandparents actually had this happen to them, I thought fraud was just something that was random, like maybe 1 out of every 100 people gets defrauded and they were careless online. But from really researching it and understanding like how it occurred, what they're doing, what their tactics are, I realized that it is a much bigger problem in our community, and so we should take more action to help stop that. And so for that end, I was actually enrolled in a class at Dublin High called ROP Criminal Justice, and my teacher in that class was a former law enforcement officer of over 30 years in the space of consumer affairs, investigating financial crimes. And so I really talked to him initially saying, hey, can we host an event together in June after the school ends at Dublin and to help talk to some people about this and educate them. And that was really where we first started off. It was not that, we only got 5 people in the event, but that was really the foundation for Fraud Stop and how we were able to scale up and host more events later on.
Really cool. And Aayush, you and I met at an event recently at San Jose State where you had presented along with some representatives from the San Francisco division of the FBI, which was super cool. And they had shared some staggering statistics that evening from 2023. And this was the data that they shared that evening. Let's see if you remember. They had reported, and this is San Francisco division FBI, that complaint numbers from 2023, and these are complaints that were reported, topped over 100,000. The average dollar loss for each one of those complaints was nearly $34,000. Total losses for 2023 over $3.5 billion. And each individual or all the individuals in total lost more than 100K. And that was an increase of over 11% from 2022. So elder abuse continues to be a concern for many of us with aging loved ones, including your grandparents. But clearly authorities are taking this very seriously too. So Aayush, on your website, you mentioned 3 Ps as being part of your education strategy. Those are protect, prevent, and prepare. Tell us how you're working with partners like Patelco to help educate the community in those 3 areas.
Yeah, so we've tried to make our educational curriculum in a couple of different ways. FraudStop typically hosts either presentations, tables, or goes to other events to help raise awareness and find partners to help educate those around us about financial fraud. And over the course of the past year and a half, I would say we've developed our curriculum around the 3 Ps, like you mentioned, which are protect, prevent, and prepare. And each of those, while they might sound similar, address different points in our curriculum. For example, the first point, 1, protect, means to reach out and know how to reach out to law enforcement, like your DA's office, bank institutions, to help them help you report fraud, but also safeguard your information and stay on top of things. The second point about prevent is about how you can know how to identify fraud and the characteristics of the main types of fraud, like investment scams, romance scams, internet scams, telephone scams, reverse mortgage scams. So all of those things. And the last P is prepare. And this might seem like, again, to protect and prevent, but this is more about empowering people to take control of their finances and to help them, know what to do when they see a fraud. Not only know what it is, but what to do and how to prevent themselves from getting defrauded. And so along this vein, we've really partnered with a multitude of agencies, government agencies like the ACSSA, Alameda County Sheriff's Office, but our highlight has to be Patelco. I mean, we've hosted 2 events at 2 senior homes, one in Dublin at Emerald Valley in April, as well as one in Pleasanton. And there we got guest speakers from Patelco's fraud department, Miss Olga and Mr. Aaron. And the guest speakers came and they were super helpful, and they talked a lot and emphasized how senior citizens should report what they've noticed, how they can take action, and how Patelco can help them. And so we've brought other guest speakers, but this is some of our highlights. And so our approach has started, I think I would describe it as an inverted cone. Like at the beginning of our presentation, we start big, right? What are the general trends? What's going on? Then we talk about what are the main types of categories of fraud, like telephone scams, internet scams, investment scams, and so forth. And then we narrow down on each type of main scam and help our people who are talking to help know what are they, what are the characteristics of them, and how to safeguard yourself. That is one way in which we do so. We're also moving towards more webinar approaches. Actually, yesterday I hosted a webinar with Alameda County SSA, and one of the people who I was talking to had a question said how they got an email from PG&E saying that PG&E overbilled them for $200 and they needed to reply to them and get the money back through a bank-to-bank transfer. And that person replied saying, "Oh, I suppose I got overbilled." And so that fake email address asked for their bank number, and luckily the participant got suspicious of that and never replied, but was almost about to and was almost debating it. And this is really scary because it shows that not only it shows how people are targeting and making you believe that they are government bodies that we know and trust, but it also shows how it's increasing. This person was not a senior citizen, but they were getting these email addresses and these text messages, and so it is really important that we address this. And so when I heard from her, we went over email spoofing, which is when they can change the email address slightly to make it seem it's authentic. And so we are trying to tailor our educational goals depending on what people in the room and people in the events really are facing.
Yeah, and it's not just seniors who are being targeted, right? That same day that I met you, the San Francisco division of the FBI also shared 2023 data of overall fraud, citing that the annual cost of cybercrime is $8 trillion now. Those are 2023 stats, so that probably has grown. Cyber attacks happen once every 39 seconds, and 95% of attacks are due to human error. So, what are you seeing with fraud in regards to with scams with teenagers?
Yeah, so we've noticed that fraud is universal. Like everyone is affected by it. Scammers are constantly trying to defraud people of all age groups. However, the types of fraud, depending on the age group, vary slightly to maybe significantly. For example, we've noticed that teenagers and younger adults are more likely to be defrauded with like digital scams on social media, crypto scams, investment scams. And even though the amount of cost, I believe, like per amount scam for teenagers and young adults is lower, it is still high and it's still in the thousands. And so it is still important for people to take action. And so at Fraud Stop, we're actually actively looking to expand into this cohort by hosting events at libraries, civic centers, maybe even schools. Really, wherever young adults like me, I'm part of that cohort, wherever we congregate so we can help educate people around us on that. Even Patelco is part of this. I know on Instagram, you guys recently published about going to Castro Valley Library. And so that was really cool to see people are now shifting their focus from singularly being on senior citizens while they are affected to be the broader landscape of many age groups and many people who are being affected.
Yeah. Why is it so important that young people as early as middle school or high school are well versed and aware of these scams?
Yeah, great question. So like I mentioned before, like, scams, especially newer ones, are targeting youth at higher rates. And I believe that unfortunately with AI and these new deepfakes, these voice modulation, it's only going to have continued negative effects on the younger generation, which I'm also a part of. And so I think from what I've researched, what I've seen, the reason why younger adults are getting scammed at higher rates is because of high digital usage, because of this digital fluency, and the fact that a lot of younger adults are entering the workforce, and so people are targeting them with job scams, with investment scams, because they're eager to make money, eager to prove themselves, and so this makes online scams ever more likely. And the reason why I would encourage people to start learning about it now, taking action, reading up on this, is because it helps you prepare for your. Not only teaches you how to, stay safe online, but it also teaches you how to manage your finances because you need to know who is trustworthy, what is going on, what types of payment methods are out there, and helps you also stay on top of the curve. In fact, I've seen that if people are defrauded at younger ages, maybe like teenage years or younger adults, they're more likely to have long-term maybe stress or health issues. They might be stressed out and might be untrustworthy of people later on. And so it is important to not have that emotional burden later on in life, as well as it can also damage maybe your long-term health. For example, if you've lost a huge sum of money to an investment scam or to a job scam, your credit score might go down later on, might be unable to make payments. And so that is really a very scary situation. And so it might seem distant, but in actuality, it isn't per the trends. And so I would encourage everyone takes action.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you a couple questions we didn't plan for, but what surprises you when you're out with our senior communities and you're doing these classes? What surprises you about what they already know or what they might not know?
Great question. So I think that what I've seen is that a lot of the senior citizens know that sometimes things seem ridiculous, they seem suspicious, but sometimes they still go for it because they have this lingering question like, what if it was accurate? What if I have to owe these taxes? What if I have to pay this debt? What if I have this bill, right? So I think that a lot of them are able to recognize patterns in scams, but they're always maybe hesitant to fully regard something as a scam. And so what we've tried to help them out with is maybe some like useful tips, right? For example, if someone sends them an email, they can always verify that email by looking at the email address, if there are small changes. If it's a telephone number, you can always maybe think that it might be real, but hang up the phone and redial the official number. So even if it might be a real thing, you can always stay on top of the curve. So I'm trying to emphasize that it is okay to be hesitant and be kind of trusting of some people, but still take precautions to make sure that you are not on the wrong end of things.
Yeah, and I've got a teenager at home, Aayush. How do you, who's not always receptive to like conversations and want to talking about serious subjects, so how is what you're trying to do being received by your peers and teens at your high school, for instance, when you present this?
Well, to be honest, right now we've mainly hosted events at like senior centers. We're trying to go to this new cohort, but I presented at SJSU with you. You were actually there, as well as at another ACFE event at Visa. And we've noticed a lot of youth, especially maybe in the younger adult category, college students, are more receptive to taking action, knowing what's going on, and entering the space. For me, for teenagers, I would emphasize that instead of having like hour-long conversations or presentations, they might get bored out, not really want to be a part of it, maybe have like posts on Instagram or TikTok or Twitter or whatever, and so they can like have small tips that they are constantly reminded of to help, have it at the back of their mind that, hey, if I see this type of scam, it's probably a scam because blah 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 reason or XYZ reason. And so I think it's more about adapting our educational methods to them instead of having them come to us.
Yeah, or tune into our podcast, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I love all the tips that you share on your Instagram. How can people learn more about Fraud Stop and get involved?
Yeah, so we're always looking for Fraud Stop is still in its infancy. We're always looking to bring on new people, go to new parts of the Bay Area. Like we're trying to go into the SF region, Oakland region. We have some events lined up there. So we're looking for people to help volunteer with us, host more events, maybe get trained in their local community so they can go out and host themselves, maybe also publish on social media and help run that department and so forth. And so we do have some volunteering opportunities available depending on what you are into, maybe social media, maybe developing new resources through On Canva, reaching out to other senior centers to host events and so forth. And so I would encourage that everybody who's interested, please email us if you're interested. Our email address is contact@fraudstopclub.org. Contact is spelled regularly, and Fraud Stop Club is FRAUDSTOPCLUB.org. And so if you email us there, I can definitely reach out to you and see if we could collaborate, if we could bring you on the team and so forth. For Instagram and that department, like we are posting, trying to post regularly, maybe once a week. We have a handle at Fraud Stop Club. And there we have a series called Quick Tips, Fraud Safeguards, where we're trying to have small tips to help people safeguard against the main types of fraud out there. So that's it for that end. And we also have a website, www.fraudstopclub.org, where you can find information on our upcoming events, who we've partnered with in the past, our photo gallery, as well as our presentation, our resource brochure, and so forth.
Well, Aayush, we are so impressed with all the work that you're doing and all the collaboration that we've had together out at events in the community. You know that Patelco's mission is to support our members with financial wellness, and that extends to our community. So everything that you're doing is perfectly aligned with our shared collective goal in trying to support our community with financial wellness and fraud prevention specifically. Patelco's got some great information on fraud prevention that you can find on patelco.org/fraud. And definitely check out Aayush's website at fraudstopclub.org and get in contact with him at contact@fraudstopclub.org. I know I want to be part of your fan club and be involved with what you're doing. Thank you so much. We're so impressed with everything that you're doing. We wish you a wonderful last summer before your senior year and continued goals toward college. And thank you for being with us again today.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me here. It's a great conversation, and I'm also looking forward to bringing Patelco to our future events and bringing guest speakers from your bank.
All right, folks, that's going to do it for today on Small Talks for Big Change, where we help simplify financial topics to help with your financial wellness. Stay well out there, everyone. We'll see you next time. Patelco Credit Union is insured by NCUA. Hey guys, thanks for watching. To subscribe, click here. To watch the next video, click here. See you next time.